Good morning. So, this first session is going to be a conversation around the government's strategy on wellness, the work of Dame Carol Black and others, including some people sitting on the panel, I might say. And it's going to be in the form of questions and answers. And the first question is, well, panel, who are you? I'd like you each to spend about 60 seconds telling us who you are and your role in the wellness programs and so on. Who would like to go first?
Hi, good morning. I'm Roxane Gervais. I work for the Health and Safety Laboratory, which is the research body for the Health and Safety Executive, which is the regulatory body for health and safety within Great Britain. I'm an occupational psychologist, so I focus on well-being at the workplace.
Hey, hi, my name's Huw Meredith. I'm from the Work and Health Unit, which is a new cross-government unit that's been set up, primarily sponsored by Department for Work and Pensions and Department of Health, to look across the board at the whole work and health agenda. Eagle-eyed people will have spotted I'm not Deborah Jameson, who's noted in the programme. Deborah, I was told, had urgent responsibilities in court. I'm assuming that's on the right side of the bench, but I'm very happy to step in and give a perspective from Work and Health Unit. My particular responsibility is for sickness absence policy and for workforce issues, which really looks across the board at health and welfare workforce. And within sickness absence policy, looking specifically at issues around the Fit Note, the Fit for Work service, and other sort of related aspects. I'm not a great advertisement for sickness absence policy because my son is currently off sick from school with Gareth Bale-itis. But as he finished his exams yesterday, I've taken quite a lenient view on that one. But thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Thank you, Huw.
Hi, good morning. I'm actually who it says in the programme. My name is Robert Cochran. I'm here from Scottish Widows. I'm not specifically involved in any government drive for wellness, but Scottish Widows are one of the biggest pension providers in the UK. We're one of the biggest pension providers in the UK, and what we see is an increasingly move away from just looking at pensions in isolation to the much broader financial wellness piece. So we've been involved in a lot of research in that space, and we'll try and bring some of our learnings and our involvement with the government to life over this piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Kelly. I'm proudly Australian, so I won't be supporting England, but I will be supporting Wales tonight. As with regards to the Ashes, we all know what the outcome will be, so we've established clearly that Australia is a dominant cricket nation. I'm also a psychologist. I've been employed by HSC the best part of 18 years and spent 16 of those working on work-related stress, mental health and well-being. So this has been my life for the last 18 years. And I'm excited because I remember a time when well-being and health wasn't on the agenda, and we were shouting in very small rooms about why we needed to be doing this. The other thing I want us to think about is wellness the elephant in the room? Now, these are excellent stress elephants. It's the first one I've found, so I recommend if you collect these, which I do, I have about 16 of these different stress toys. This is particularly good. But is wellness actually the elephant in the room? Because sometimes when I go out as a HSC and talk to businesses, obviously I go as an inspector, wellness really isn't on their agenda. Okay.
Good, thank you, Peter. Well, the first question is, why do you believe that wellness is so important in the workplace? And when you come to discuss that, could you sort of think about a sort of business case for having a wellness strategy and introducing it into the workplace? Who'd like to go first? Huw, how about you?
Sorry. Yes, I think there's actually quite an exciting agenda developing now on the part of government. There has been a specific commitment to halving the disability employment gap. This is something that actually was developed by stakeholders in the voluntary sector to try and set a benchmark target for government to really get its act together across the whole work and health agenda. It was something that was specifically taken up by the Prime Minister and included in the manifesto for the Conservative government going forward, and has been specifically recognised subsequently in the fiscal arrangements that have been made, subsequent budgets and so on. The idea of halving the disability employment gap really requires about 1 million disabled people to be brought into the labour market who are currently outside it or excluded from it. And the whole systems approach which the government through the Work and Health Unit is taking is really trying to bring together all elements of the health system, the welfare system and the employer community to work together to ensure that those 1 million people do come in, can start contributing to the labour market and in turn improve their own life chances, their own health and their own sort of financial stability. In order to do that, there is a kind of a chain that goes right back through recruitment and retention of people with disabilities and long-term health conditions, that goes back into the welfare of people in work who have long-term health conditions or are subject to periods of sickness absence. And then in turn before that, there is a whole agenda around prevention, around wellness, around ensuring that people have a constructive relationship between work and health. And so the importance of this really starts at the beginning of the process, which is the wellbeing at work agenda, and works through the whole system, and the intention, the ambition, which is a challenging one, is really to improve and where necessary transform the system in order to achieve this target of getting 1 million people back in work. So all of this is currently a very high priority for the government, and the wellbeing agenda right at the start is at the heart of making it all happen.
Thank you. Roxane, what's your take on this? Why is wellness so important?
Well, the main point to make is that work is good for individuals. If you have a good job, you've got a good place in which you work, that means that you're a more healthy individual, you're more focused. If you enjoy what you do as well, that improves on the productivity and performance that you can bring to the organization. It also means that you're more focused on your job, you enjoy your job a lot more, so that your job satisfaction is improved, your health is improved, and you're overall a happier, healthy individual. So it makes sense for organizations to contribute to the well-being of employees, because they benefit, society benefits, and the organization benefits, and the individuals benefit. So it's not saying that, and again, we know from research, as an occupational psychologist, I know, someone is working in a job that's not very fruitful in terms of what they can do, how they can do, and we come back to the health and safety management standards, where you look at the key constructs that influence whether or not an individual is healthy at the workplace. And you look at demands. Are they in control of what they do? Are they having too much to do? What are their working relationships like within the workplace? Do they get support in the workplace? Do they get support from their supervisors, from their peers? All of these are contributing factors to how effective is the well-being within the organization. If those constructs are not in place and not to the benefit of the employee, their mental health and also their physical health can also suffer. So we do have to focus on well-being if we want the society to move forward, if we want organizations to be a more productive and healthy work environment. We have to focus on the well-being of employees, because without people within the workplace, you would not have organizations.
Robert, from a finance point of view, is there a business case for having a wellness strategy within the workplace, do you think?
Well, definitely. If I look specifically at financial wellness, I guess there's two elements to it. There's an employee imperative and an employer imperative. If I start with the employee imperative the employee associates the financial well-being more and more with the employer, particularly because of auto-enrollment. So if you look at auto-enrollment, employers taking responsibility for putting the employees into a pension scheme. So they've kind of absolved themselves of responsibility to some extent. So who do they trust? So they don't really trust many people when it comes to financial matters. Number one people that they trust is their friends and family, who are probably not all that well able to help them. The second area that they trust is generally their employer. So the people that have been set up to help them, if you like, so the insurance companies, pension companies, financial advisors, they all come further down the list. So first of all, you're going to see your employees asking you more and more for help around financial education, guidance and advice. And the government's recognised that with a recent review, FAMR, which we'll talk about later on. Then I think if you look at the employer imperative, you no longer have the ability to say to people, this is the age at which you must retire. So it's in your interest to make sure that when people get to a reasonable retirement age, that they have a reasonable fund so that they can retire. And that seems to be coming out more and more and more. It isn't just about pensions, and it will become increasingly about the other things that sit around pensions, so whether that's the government's new LISA, whether it's ISAs, whether it's other savings vehicles, all of that stuff will come into play. But what that will also mean is it's a more complex decision, which means the employees, again, likely to come back for more help, guidance and advice.
Thank you. Peter, from the HSE's perspective, why is wellness so important? Why has the HSE got involved with the management standards?
Okay.
All those things.
It might be really interesting to give you a little checkered history very quickly. Wellness and health and well-being didn't just happen. It's actually been a process in government. 2004, we launched the management standards. 2006, the Treasury do a review on common mental health problems and realised actually it costs a lot of money to treat people rather than to prevent mental illness. So that leads to 2008, which is Dame Carol Black's report on healthy living and healthy workforce through the ages, which says actually if you invest in your people, look at prevention, it's far better. 2011, Dame Carol Black and Frost do a report on sickness absence. So what we've got here is a collection of data sources which quite clearly says that the business case for wellness is established, that you as a business benefit from actually investing in people's... That's okay.
Well, Peter, I suggest carry on rather than divert everyone's attention to someone who's feeling unwell. Would you just like to carry on a little bit?
Is this back? Yeah, it's back on. Cool. So really what we know from a business perspective is that successful businesses have well-being and health in there. If you want to tackle stress and you're worried about the term stress, people need to be using the word health and well-being. What happens if you don't have people's health and well-being looked after? Looks a lot like stress, doesn't it? Looks a lot like work-related. That's because it is. And I remember it was interesting, I had a conversation with Kerry Cooper and he said, you're not doing stress, Peter. And I went, what happens when you don't manage people's health and well-being, Kerry? And he went, yeah, I get it. It's a slight change of the message. But the point is, workplaces now have demands on them. You've got people coming into your workplaces that have expectations that you will look after their health and well-being. When you talk to the companies who go out to recruitment fairs, the students are saying, what are you going to do to look after my health and well-being? Not also how much money you're going to give me, quite clearly, but they also want to know. Why are the top 100 companies and the 500 companies in Times all got well-being, all have wellness in place? It's a no-brainer from a key performance indicator, isn't it? That actually looking after your people, they look after you. So that's why at HSC we're interested in health and well-being, because we're interested. It does say health and safety, and so we have to do that, and we've been support, and we've been behind a number of initiatives, very subtle initiatives, just to encourage people to move into health and well-being. And I'm trying to make it short and sweet.
Okay, thanks
it's
very
abnormal
much.
for me.
Well, let's take the first question from the audience, which is, why is the government's two-tick symbol no longer available to employers to gain accreditation if disability employment is so important? I don't know, Huw, is that something you can comment on?
I mean, it's not an area that I'm specifically responsible for, but there are government initiatives in place such as Disability Confident that are aimed at working alongside employers and encouraging employers to work together. And these schemes are informed and co-produced alongside organisations and groups of disabled people to develop a joint approach and to ensure that standards are continually improving and there is some kind of scrutiny of the effect of those on disability employment. So I think these things move forward, hopefully in constructive ways, but the next key step that the government is bringing forward is a green paper that will be published later this year, which will be an opportunity to look in the round at how are these systems working, what is the evidence base and the business case for moving forward in particular ways, and to really invite a much wider debate about how we take things forward from here.
Thank you. Anyone else know why the government has withdrawn the two-tick symbol? No? Let's move on to another question. What role should the employer play in wellness? Roxane, what do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's essential for the employer to have a key role in employees' wellness, because unless they do, it's to the detriment of the organization. The employees are investing their time, their energy, their expertise in helping the organization to move forward. And if you don't look after the employees, then you're sending the wrong message to the employees that you're not worth what I'm giving to you. So it's very important for the employer to think, like, how can I support the staff? How can I make the work more meaningful to them? How can I encourage them, support them, help them move forward within the organization? Because neither of the two parties, the employer or the employee, would benefit if health and safety is not on the agenda, if wellness is not an essential part of how the organization functions. It has to be included, otherwise, people are unhappy, you've got higher stress levels, you've got various mental health issues arising because of the work environment, you've got depression, anxiety, fatigue, all of which would not encourage good working practices. The employees can't function, the organization is not able to be as effective as it could be, and as functional as it could be, so the employer has to think about what is the benefit to the employer as well as to the employee.
Thank you. Peter?
I'm psychological Pete, by the way, on Slido. So if I respond to your questions, there's some really interesting stuff going on Slido. I just think it has to be at the heart of the business. When I go and talk to people at conferences, or we sit down with board company directors and we say, who are your most important asset? And they'll say, your people. But then actually the reality is it's the systems and processes around those people that when you say, well, is what you do actually connected with the people that your workforce, or have you developed systems and processes, high demands, low control, which basically mean that your people are going to underperform. So you need, when you're looking at, as a company, at wellness, to think of the whole person. How does the person deliver what you want them to deliver? You don't have a business if you don't have people who are engaged. Because if your people are engaged, they'll work for you, they'll work successfully, they'll work harder, and they'll work more efficiently. If your people are not engaged, you will get ill health. There's a simple correlation between the two, because people who are experiencing high pressure will become ill. But more than that, they also have the potential to actually engage in behaviour that leads to accidents. One of the things that I train our inspectors at the moment is when you go into an accident, where an accident's occurred, ask the question, what was happening in the work environment? What are the psychosocial characteristics, those psychological and social influences in that workplace that maybe have led to that accident occurring? Because actually we know people, once they become disengaged, start behaving in a way which puts them at risk. So for me, it has to be at the heart. And I think the businesses that get this know it. And they really do actually see the benefits in looking at. And also, if you're going to be going to your board of directors, ask them what it is that they would want as an employee if they were in this organisation. And almost universally, they want to be respected. And they want to actually feel that somebody's looking after them. And people that have had an influence on us are the people that have spent time with us to say, you need to do it better and indifferently. What we're doing now is probably one of the single biggest interventions you can do on work-related stress. Talk. Have a conversation. Let's not call it stress. Let's talk about what's happening in work and how we do it. And the same for wellness. It's not about apples. It's not about pears. It's not all about, it's everything. It's about the workplace and what happens in that workplace. It's about good management. It's about talking to people. And it's also about massage. And it's about healthy eating. And it's about looking at the job and the structure of the job. And that ends my Hyde Park moment.
Okay. Well, let's just take one last question, which has suddenly disappeared. Actually, we'll talk about. Tell me, can you predict the future for wellness within the workplace? What's going to happen in the future? Huw, what sort of ideas have you got about that, do you think?
I think, again, probably this is where I would appeal for ideas to come forward through the Green Paper process. That is an opportunity for us actually to take a much more comprehensive look at the whole landscape of work and health and well-being at work, the current sort of relatively ad hoc way in which these kinds of services have developed and these kinds of initiatives work across public and private sector. There's an opportunity to actually look at the way that government funds and organises education, training, services, support across this whole area. There are big questions about how much role employers should take themselves, and therefore how much should employers themselves be funding these kinds of initiatives, and to what extent should the funding fall on government as an investment in the economy as a whole. There are questions around what's the role of specific health practitioners, GPs, occupational health practitioners, occupational therapists, occupational hygienists, all the sort of range of professional and disciplinary activity that goes on in that area. Our ambition is that systems are much more integrated. There is much more clarity about where employers need to turn and what employers should be doing with them for themselves in this space. And there is an ambition around, as I say, ensuring that people are not slipping through the net, and that a cultural transformation takes place so that work and health are seen as sort of interdependent and sort of mutually beneficial in terms of business case for businesses and for the economy as a whole. So it's very difficult for me to predict at this stage, and I wouldn't want to preempt any of the innovation and testing of new ideas that we are hoping to do. But I would urge people to engage with the Green Paper process and give us the evidence and the creativity that we need in order to take it forward.
Good. Thanks very much. Our time is up. So thank you, panel. Thank you very much.